and welcome back to another episode of Come Over for Dinner. I'm so glad you're joining me. Today I have a very special guest. Her name is Emily Ely. She is an owner with her husband of Ely Construction. And besides designing homes for other people, they have designed their own home. They remodeled it for enjoyment, for themselves, of course, their family. They have 5 children, ages 3 through 10, but also with hospitality in mind. They wanted a cheerful space that would serve their family and all of the guests that they invite over. They love to host dinner parties, and they have created an outdoor space as well, which we're going to talk about today. They often host over 100 guests in the summer months, and the kitchen backs straight up to their backyard. They have a big open window that opens on the backyard where they can just seamlessly serve the food. So we're going to talk a little bit about their design and how they host and some of her hot tips. They were named NARI. What does that stand for?
It's just a national design.
Okay. A National Region 6 Northwest 2023 Regional Contractor of the Year winner for the project that they did with their home. So it's very exciting. So welcome, Emily.
Thank you.
All right. Well, tell us a little bit more about this. Tell us, okay, so you designed your home with hospitality in mind. It's a gorgeous home. Tell us a little bit about how you...
Yeah, so Nathaniel and I have been married it'll be 14 years this year, and he's been in construction since before we met. And for many years, while our kids were little, we were buying foreclosure homes and flipping them and living in them for a while and then either reselling them or keeping them as rentals. And we're really thankful for that opportunity. Where we live now and across much of the country, that's not an option for many people. And we're thankful that we were blessed by that opportunity the years that it was a good opportunity. Mm-hmm. And I was pregnant with our 3rd child, and Nathaniel's desk, we didn't have employees at this time. His desk was our dining room, and we were in a 1,100 square foot farmhouse that had a pier foundation and skunks living under it.
Hospitality to skunks.
Oh,
that's a new one.
Great, yeah. We woke up in the morning, probably 3 a.m. one morning, and to hear a scuffling. It sounded like cats fighting right underneath our floorboards, and our bedroom was right on the ground level, and thinking it was cats. And with the fuzziness that comes with 3 a.m., Nathaniel jumps up out of bed and stomps on the floor. And as he stomps on the floor, it's just this.
Oh,
and it smelled. There's no insulation, so it smelled so awful. And then we have two little babies sleeping upstairs, and 3 a.m. Sunday morning, what are you supposed to do? And so we decided to just wait it out. And of course, I start Googling right away, like, what do you do? How do you get them out of there? And the crawl space at that point was so shallow, we couldn't even stick a pole in between, because skunks, they burrow down and make little... It's a long story. Anyways, we lived in a whole variety of different places. And when we first got married, it was a tiny treetop apartment, a little 1-bedroom with a bathroom that you couldn't even pass each other hardly. It was a great newlywed apartment, and we're thankful for that opportunity. And every step of the way, even before we met, for both of us, hospitality was a really big deal, because both of us have traveled to probably combined about 50 countries, and we have reaped the benefits of people showing us generosity and welcoming us into their homes, into their stories, in ways that we didn't deserve, in ways we didn't comprehend, and ways that pushed our buttons in all the right ways, the ways that God wanted us to be stretched in. And through being the recipients of that, it made us want to also press that into our stories. So now we've got 5 little kids, and that's something we want them to love, to love meeting other people, and then also to have wisdom and intuition and being able to do that in a way that's wise. And especially while they're in our home. So to see us loving other people in that way, and spending the gifts that God's given us and pushing those all the way out to the edges, so that hopefully as they grow older, they want to do the same thing too. Especially in the culture that we live in now, where there's more victimhood or entitlement, whatever, just not being part of that. Yes. So anyways, I was pregnant with our 3rd. Nathaniel's desk was the dining room, and we would wait usually until the summer, which is appropriate that we're doing this episode on outdoor hospitality, because even back then, and this was over 7 years ago, we'd have people on paper plates in the living room because there's nowhere else to sit.
Yeah.
and just on their laps. And it was great. We'd still invite people
Still
over.
had a great time.
And sometimes it was tight because there's pots and pans all over the kitchen because there's hardly any space. And we made a point of actually inviting over people that were intimidating to us because they're at a different stage of life on purpose. One, because it would push me to not care as much about trying to make things quote unquote right or correct or impressive, even though I still wanted to.
Right.
You know, whenever you invite people over, it's such a gift in that I guess there's all different types of personalities, but for me, it means that I get projects done. So all those piles of clutter and papers and whatever, just like sewing projects or whatever you might have laying around gets magically cleaned up when you invite people over. So whenever I'm saying, hey babe, so-and-so's coming over, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, or he throws the same thing at me for whatever reason, we both kind of smile because we know stuff's going to get done.
Spring cleaning.
It's going to get done and it's going to be great. And so for that reason too, and we wanted to bless other people in that there's lots of people that I think it's easy to be intimidated by, oh, they know more than me, or they've had more life experiences, or I wouldn't be interesting to them. They're in a different stage of life, or it wouldn't be good enough. And we would just really want that. We've always wanted to push back against that because of the hospitality we received when we were so undeserving. And that's exactly what Christ is for us. So just, he's given so much to us and so abundantly, like God, you know, and you have the abundance of fruit that falls from the trees and he just lets it decay. He wants us to use those gifts. And so even if it's a financial thing, you hear that from people, well, it's expensive to host. Yes, can be, but it doesn't have to be. Right, exactly. It doesn't have to be. And so we had all these little places, and then we were praying, and I said, babe, I don't want to keep on having babies and live in the middle of construction zones. If we're going to stay here, and we've developed multiple businesses at this point, and are entrepreneurs and have a really good, just love the community here in this town. And so we thought, hey, let's start praying about and walking around. We go for tons of walks. And we thought we don't want to be a country family because we know we're going to be in the car all the time. We want to see our neighbors. We want to ask people questions. We want to pet their dogs. We want to like just, you know, all this stuff.
Just want to be surrounded by people.
Right, to be in the community and not be sitting in the car all the time. So we prayed about it and we unrolled a map of Moscow and we looked for lots that even if they hadn't been on the market, that were large lots. Because since we're in construction, we thought even if the house is a total knockdown, we could probably do something with it.
Can renovate it or knock it down and build something in the place.
And we had a lot of criteria, things that we wrote down. We had a list that we wrote down of what we were hoping for because we do want to host a lot, and we also had young kids, and so we wanted. We had also safety, like security parameters. We didn't want to have a space where we had strangers walking through to use the bathroom past our kids' bedrooms, things like that you have to think about when you're having people over. And so when I say, yes, we're hospitable and have lots of people over, that takes a lot of thinking and planning and strategy, and also a willingness to have the backbone to maybe hurt somebody's feelings for the sake of people that are in your care. And we're okay with that. And we've had different situations where we've had to use those skills. And it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah.
So anyways, we prayed very specifically, even to the point where I said, babe, let's maybe cut our list back a little bit because it's too much to ask God for. It's too much. Like, yes, he's generous, but we don't want to push his buttons kind of thing. and he just smiles sweetly and he's like, we're going to keep praying for these specific things, you know? And that was a good submissive sort of thing to be like, okay, all right, we will. I don't really want to because I don't think we're ever going to get it. And so anyways, a very long story short, and it was even a year or so after we sent the initial letters, there was only 2 properties that fit the criteria we were looking for to be able to walk downtown with a stroller and be in the middle of community. Like, so we had a long list. We also own a business, so we wanted to be able to be in an area where we could do that winsomely towards our neighbors. So it was a little bit tricky, and God said yes, and neither house was on the market. But when he finally got to walk through this one, and then we sat down, and he said, we asked what they were going to list it for. And they told us, and we said, oh, sorry for wasting your time. That's outside of our budget. And they said, whoa, okay.
Wait,
well,
hold on.
What's your top? What's your absolute top? And it wasn't on the market. You know, they talked to a realtor, but they said, hey, we remembered you'd sent that letter a year or so ago when they weren't ready to sell. And they said, we remembered you. We just thought you'd moved on. And so no, we do a private sale. Let's just talk about it. And so we told him our highest number. And he said, we don't want to do showings anyways. It sounds good to us.
Wow.
And his wife said, yeah.
That's
and they'd
incredible.
already printed off paperwork. It was on the table in the dining room behind him. He pulls off this table. I hadn't even seen it at this point. We put it on, we write in the amount, and we sign. And I was just squeezing Nathaniel's arm so hard on the way out the door. I was just like they're going to tear it up. They're going to tear it up. Me doubting again.
Okay.
God's goodness and his plan for those who just trust in him. And my husband is so trusting. And
he's like, no,
and just
babe,
wise about it.
this
He's
is
like,
perfect,
"No,
and
it's
this
gonna be
is what God provided.
Yeah.
So what are you worried about?
Right, exactly. We prayed for this very, very long list. And
Right.
and even that long list, after we moved in, and there's a whole saga there. There's lots of funny things, which is what I love about buying used properties, because the stories. Like, it's all about story. And it has been for both of our lives. But that's one of the glories about hospitality, is that hospitality is kind of like, it's like a way of telling a story. It's the art of telling a story in a way that you're telling your story, but you're inviting other people to go live there as well. And if you could do that in a way where people leave inspired to be like, we don't have the same situation as the Elys or as the Hawthorns, but we're going to go from here and be like, we could, that was fun. That was great. And I learned something about somebody else, but also about myself.
Yeah.
And we can go make something more beautiful, whether it's food or a place or your table.
Your point about having people over that maybe you aren't super comfortable with, or thinking, oh, well, they have, they're in a different place in life or whatever. That's a really great point, because those people you can learn such wisdom from, and they, just a different perspective and different life experiences are fabulous, because you do learn from each other and you help each other grow. I mean, iron sharpens iron. You have experiences they don't, and vice versa.
Yep.
So
that being part of the body.
Yeah.
And even if it's non-believers, that's actually another glory of being hospitable, because then your neighbors and people that don't love Christ but love the beauty that comes from all the Christians around them, and they're just not willing to submit to reality, is that people see that. And there's so many occasions now that it's being so hospitable has also opened up the door to having other people randomly stop by and be like, hey, come on over for a beer, or they'll just show up and then end up staying. And to already have the practice and the parameters in place to be able to say open-handedly, yes, I've got a bunch of pistachios. I've got something.
I've got something in my pantry.
Yeah, in the pantry that I can throw
snack.
together. And that's another trick or tip too. I might be jumping the gun, but just like, there's always little snacky things, apricots, cheeses, crackers, olives, whatever it is, where you can throw together something quickly so people feel welcome to stay. And then if you're relaxed in it and not running around the kitchen like, oh no, I've got to do this, and feeling stressed out, then they'll be like, yes, of course I want to stay here. And then maybe you can get into a conversation that would be just lead to gospel. Or even if it's just loving them and loving their story, and not having somebody feel weirded out that they're different from you, but having them be able to open up and say, this is what's happened to me, this is what I've experienced, this is what's been hard, and then to have that lead to more and more conversations. That is the heart of the gospel, of being able to draw that out of people, and you have to be hospitable to do that.
Yes. Great point. I mean, even offering somebody just a drink, just a cold drink, I mean, if you have a cold beer or other fancy drinks, great. But, in the South, a lot of times they would just pull out the iced tea or the lemonade, or up here, if you make a cup of coffee, I don't think I've ever had anybody turn down a cup of coffee.
That's true.
And snacks are great too, but just having that welcoming attitude, and just, I am excited to sit down and talk to you.
Right.
I am eager to sit down and talk to you and just hear your story and visit with you today.
We've had people too that know that we're open for conversations, or for, even if we hadn't invited them over, we've had people that have called and said, hey, can I come over? And if it was a season where I had really littles and it seemed overwhelming to me, people that have, my husband's just said, yeah, you bring over a pizza and you can come for dinner. You bring dinner, and you're welcome for that dinner that you're bringing.
And they were happy.
Yeah, and they're happy to do it.
pizza.
Yeah, people want the community. They don't really care about. I mean, it's nice to eat. I mean, we're foodies, and it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
And that's another thing too. Whenever we have people over, I even trying to think about a menu for this podcast. I was thinking about how very, very often, probably 95% of the time, it's guinea pig stuff, because I love trying new stuff. We've traveled all over the world, and so it's fun to bring pieces of those stories and memories back in to food. And then outside dining is just hot summertime al fresco. You don't want to be slaving over an oven all the time, so it's fun to be able to do that. But very often
you're experimenting on your guests,
and it doesn't always work out, but it's always fun and interesting, and then it usually makes people leave feeling better about themselves.
Like, okay, if she can pull that off, I can do it too.
Or the opposite. Well, that was awful, so that means it's probably fine if I also botch it.
I'm sure it's not awful. But on that note, what menu might you serve? I mean, especially for your outdoor hospitality, it's summertime, and a lot of us are thinking of hosting on the patio or out back. What would you serve for guests coming over?
I don't really do much meal planning anymore unless it's a really specific event. So it's things that I always get. And then when I'm at the store, and in this stage of life, I feel I'm at the store like 3 times a week at least.
Yes, with 5 small children who eat all the time.
Right. Well, and now
food disappears quickly.
Yeah, and we've designed this patio where the neighborhood kids are coming over, and it's wonderful. It's just a different phase that we're leveling up into. About, I might come home from running an errand. My husband will be in the office, which is in our garage, and I might show up and there'll be 10 kids here, like some in the pool, some playing in the far backyard. And so setting parameters so everybody knows what's happening, and parents are texting back and forth. But that also means snacks, like my snack drawer or the popsicle shrapnel all over the yard. You know, even it's like those Otter Pop things where you like clip off the top and then I'll just find them.
All the little plastic
all
bits.
Over, yeah. But so, yeah, I think what we really like to do is there's things that I'll have, like I'll always get fresh herbs. So until my herb garden gets going, it'll be mint and basil, lots of fennel, mint and basil, and like cucumbers and tomatoes, and I really would like to do and have done like a Greek Euro-esque salad, because if you can toast even on the grill or in the oven real quick some chopped up pitas with different seasoning on them, and then get them kind of chippy. There's pitas that are kind of fatty and bready, and when you cook them up like croutons, they end up tasting like cardboard. But there's a different one, I think it's a whole wheat one that Walmart sells, but they might be at Winco too, where they're whole wheat, but that means that when they're almost like a croissant-y, where when you chop them up, they have layers in them that some of the non-breads or the pitas don't have. And it makes it really interesting, because then it's more of a chippy, and then you put them in a salad and they don't get soggy right away. So I like using those. And then Costco has Euro meat, but you can find that anywhere, that you can just bake up and chop up. So that's really easy. But also the grill for the summertime, you could do tons of kebab-y type of things. You throw all those together. I always have a jar of preserved lemons, because then you can make a vinaigrette that's super fresh. You zest lemons and you throw in chopped up preserved lemons, so you get that kick that's acidic, and then you use a good olive oil, and it's just, and all those herbs. It's so good.
Where
do
you buy that? At the regular grocery store, or do you order it from a specialty place?
I've picked them up at World Market before, and since they're jarred, you don't have to refrigerate them, and they last forever. But I have friends that even just make them. You can make them like you would make a limoncello or anything fermented.
I haven't. I have not ever had this product, so I will have to look for it or look for a recipe.
Yeah, they come from the Middle East, I think, originally, but now you can find them all over the place.
Okay.
But you'll see them as like Moroccan preserved lemons.
Sounds delicious for a summer dressing.
So good.
Sounds
so
amazing.
anything fresh and easy. And then also the benefit of that is when people come over or show up last minute, nobody wants to be left feeling like they're an inconvenience or they're imposing, or that they're too expensive for you or something, like nobody wants to feel like that. And on one level, people need to get over themselves. There is an element of that where it's good to have people's discomfort shown, because that helps us all to grow. Not in a rude way, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But then you have stuff that people can shop and they can help out if they want to. But that's another thing about, so moving to dessert, if we just had this big salad and then also just plates of cheeses and crackers and extra olives, I would throw olives and feta into that salad too. So it's kind of a smorgasbord of herbs, and then like light chopped romaine, because nobody wants, if you've got bulk salad from like the loose leaf salad you can get in the boxes,
the spring mix.
if you use that, the problem is if you've got kids, and we almost always have kids around here, you've got those big leaves.
Yes.
And they can't eat them.
Yeah.
I mean, they can figure it out, but usually that means I've got like leaves of lettuce plastered and dressing onto my concrete all over the place.
Yes.
And so usually I'll take a big head of romaine or get something at the farmer's market, and you curl it all up like you would when you're twisting basil and chop it really thin. And so and that's kind of a Greek salad sort of thing anyways. They slice it thin. They don't leave the big, huge leaves. Everything's chopped up small.
That would be easier for your fork to grab a piece of lettuce with other ingredients.
With other things, yeah, exactly. So you're not like a bite of all lettuce, and then I'll take my tomato and then this. So anyways, it's just bright and cheerful. And then So people have been able to help you cook. They feel like they're a part of it, and they're a part of that story of getting this meal to the table. And then if you do a dessert or something, sometimes I'll do a make ahead where I'll do like a frozen like lemon sorbet or strawberry sorbet or something, because then it's done. You bring it out, it's cold. I can maybe ice it with a whipped cream on top if I take it out of the tin, maybe so it feels like it was just done, even though it's been sitting all day, right? Because you can do all that stuff ahead of time, and it's easy, because once the hostess or the host get up and leave the conversation, depending on the group and the number of people there, sometimes to some people that triggers it's time for us to leave, or we need to start doing something. Like I really appreciate it when people help clean up, while at the same time, it shifts the mood of the entire party and event to it's time to leave now. And I don't want people to leave. I want people to keep sharing stories and getting to know each other and fellowshipping. And so I try to find sneaky ways to sneak out in the middle of a conversation, start moving dessert to the table so people don't feel like they have to get up and go through a buffet again. Like, bring the mess to where the people are, and don't be afraid of that mess, because it makes them stay. Or if I do something like, I'm trying to get really good at beignets. I'd really like to, there's certain recipes that I want to do mass produced bulk, where I can just hammer them out so well, and they taste amazing for different times of day. So you could say, hey, it's Ely's 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning. After you stop at the market, like, come over for coffee and beignets. That'd be great.
I will be here.
Yeah. and in all of our travels, there's certain things like that too. You'll try some amazing latte combination. Like the one I'm trying right now is cardamom and rose water, and
sounds delicious.
Cloves, and I think I'm gonna throw in some peppercorns. But I'm trying to get the mix just right, so you're left thinking,
sounds
what
kind
is
of
that?
Indian or something
Middle
along
Eastern,
those lines, Middle Eastern.
Where if you could do something like that, that's kind of a signature thing where people haven't had it before. And so it's interesting. It's part of a story, but it's also easy, and you're not left caring more about your recipe than the people that you're with. So if I did something like beignets for dessert, it's fun. It's a story. And
Something they haven't had,
right,
most likely.
Yeah, or that people are like, that's so hard. Like, who does that? Why would you do that? But if you're doing it on your grill, outside in the backyard in summer, it's already hot. And then they can jump and help you with it, and then they leave feeling kind of empowered in a way. To be
I can do this.
I could try something. I've always really wanted to try tiramisu, and I never have, because it seemed really intimidating. What if I looked up a recipe for a frozen version where I could make it ahead of time and not feel like I have to do all this stuff while my guests are here? So
yeah, great
we
tips.
just live in a really cool age where we have so much information, which on one hand is frustrating sometimes, because you're like, I'm going to look up a recipe for a Greek salad,
and then you're overwhelmed with the choices and which
right.
one is good and which one's not good, and this one has reviews, maybe I'll go with this one. I know it can be overwhelming.
This review is saying that I tried this recipe and I hated it, but I changed 15 things and I didn't have all the ingredients and it was awful.
Right, which is, you're not actually making the recipe at all, so why are you leaving a review?
Right, yeah, exactly.
So do you have a favorite source when you look for new recipes? If you like trying new things all the time, do you have a favorite place you go, or do you just generally look?
There's certain people that are food bloggers that I've learned to trust over time more than others. So I like Half Baked Harvest, Deb Perlman, New York
Smitten Kitchen.
Smitten Kitchen. Yeah, she tries. And what I really like about Deb, and actually Half Baked Harvest too, is they'll go back through recipes that maybe were really popular, and they'll edit them. So since they've been, well, especially Deb Perlman has been doing it for so long with Smitten Kitchen, that there are things that are like maybe 18 years ago that she has notes then at the bottom, or the top recipe, she'll say, hey, this is what I changed based off this and this. I thought it was too chewy, or it was a little bit too cakey, or whatever, and this is why I changed it. And then because I'll be like, wait, I don't like a cakey cookie. I want it to be chewy and crisp on the outside. Then you can look for things like that, and I care about that a lot. So I don't want to waste my time. Right. I've got so many cool things I could do, and then you finish this recipe, and you're like,
that's not the texture
good
cookie
thing I have kids
like.
They'll eat anything.
Right. Good thing I have 5 children. Food disappears fast, and they're only growing, so it'll start disappearing faster as the years go by.
Yeah. But that's another reason why I liked Alton Brown's stuff too, because he would kind of do
We'll test it
yeah,
over and over
or
and
Cooks
over and over.
Illustrated and things like that. But it's getting kind of harder, I feel like. Do you feel like to get certain things online where you have to have subscriptions, Food 52?
Yes, that was a new concept to me. I figured they made money from advertisements. A lot of sites do. And so to go to some websites that now are blocked, you have to have a monthly subscription. That was new information to me, but apparently some are like that. I think America's Test Kitchen is one, which is Cooks Illustrated. I'm not sure who else, but...
And you see parts of the recipe, and then you stick your finger on the screen and try and hold it before the pop-up window and maybe see if you can scan a little bit to some of the ingredients. But
yeah, then it's kind of like, well, I don't really want a monthly prescription or subscription for one recipe, so I'll just maybe look for something similar on a site that just has lots of advertisements.
Right.
And it's free.
Yep.
Any shortcuts that go along with this menu? You said you pre-make your dessert oftentimes, like if you're making something frozen, you don't pre-chop because you want your guests to jump in, which is a great idea.
Another thing about al fresco outdoor entertaining is the glory of that is, especially for families, is that you've got a lot of people and a lot of kids of varying ages, and everybody's running around. It's different than a dinner party at your house where kids might know if it's the middle of winter and we're going to basically be at the table. And we have a pretty large property with water features, which means we've had people fall in the pond. Like, I've got to give directions, and I'm a talker. So if I don't pre-make some things, I will get so sidetracked that I won't finish making the meal, which is why I need help, but I won't be able to think straight, or I'll make something wrong. Or even today, I made this drink for us, and it was supposed to be tequila-based. I don't know if you noticed, but I poured all the rum. You probably thought this was going to be really stiff, but it was because I had to put the rum to the side. I thought that was tequila, but no.
I didn't notice anything at all. It was delicious. She served a drink and snacks, and it was all delicious. We both have made this point. Guests don't know. Don't point out all your mistakes, because I didn't notice anything. I just thought it was all amazing.
Yeah, there you go. It's all part of the plan.
It was all part of the plan.
Yeah, but no, we have different activities for kids to play and do, which is another kind of hack to keep everybody occupied, because it's sad if adults are excited to get together and have adult conversations and share stories or thoughts and ideas and grow in that way, and you've got a kid that's yanking at your knee because they don't feel included, or
they're bored, they don't have something to do.
Bored, and so while on one hand that might not be a situation that everybody can do, whether it's financial or space constraints, but you can still think through maybe some activities ahead of time. We've had dinner parties where maybe people weren't going to run around, but I asked everybody ahead of time to bring their favorite joke. And even if people don't have a favorite joke, they knew ahead of time so they could look them up. And we would share them. For years we did this for Thanksgiving because everybody's around the table. So instead of being like, everybody share something you're grateful for, and then you've got the teenager that kind of rolls their eyes and tries to think of something
I'm
funny.
Grateful for my mom and dad.
I'm grateful we get to eat dinner
while
now,
it's warm, while it's hot.
Right.
Well, the joke is a fun idea because even kids can participate in that. I mean, the teenagers would love it.
Yeah. Yep.
So outdoor activities, some of it, like you said, is kind of built into the property, like you have a swing set or things you put on your property. What would you suggest for someone who's trying to do outdoor hospitality for activities for kids?
But doesn't have maybe amenities or like a trampoline or whatever.
A swing set or a trampoline.
You could look up fun minute to win it games, even things like that, where it could be something around a little spray sprinkler, or it could be, carry the egg on the spoon kind of games. Things you have around your house, as swinging crackers around on a piece of string and you've got to catch in your mouth. Like, there's so many different opportunities of things that humble people in the right ways. There's always going to be somebody that doesn't want to do something like that. But it's also great icebreakers. So if you have food where people can have snacks and they're not starving, and you've got it's a Saturday afternoon, people come over at 4 or 5, or a Sunday, midday kind of thing, and people are expecting to hang out, you kind of need to have something like that, or people are going to be looking at their watches that, it's almost nap time. It's Sunday. I got to take my nap, So I would look up, there's so many different ideas online.
Yeah, the minute to win it is a great idea, because those kind of challenges would be fun for kids.
And you can mix up what the expertise is, so they don't all have to be running. If you did all relay races, and you've got the one kid that's really fast and agile, and you've got one kid that's really, a little bit more in their heads. So with minute to win it challenges, you can mix it up for all different types of skill sets.
Oh, fun things. I know in the past we've done if you do have a table outside, we've had colors and like, I don't know, craft paper out on tables where kids can color, but they get really bored with that fast. So I think the game idea is really fun, something that they can all participate in.
Yeah, and oftentimes then there'll be shrapnel all over the yard, but then you have an opportunity because you've got all those little hands there.
You have like, okay, treasure hunt.
Right.
Who can have the most pieces of trash?
Yes, if you want dessert.
Yes.
Yeah. And usually parents are all about that too.
Oh, if you turn it into a competition, I've done that with kids before. It's like, who can get the most pieces? And I mean, they will be trying to find the smallest sliver of plastic you've ever, you didn't even know was there.
Right.
Like, I have 10.
And that can be something like a competition could be slightly terrifying for parents because you might know what's going to happen with your kid, and such a good opportunity. Like, we're all learning and growing. So I know also sometimes there can be a certain type of person that might be intimidated by that, or by even coming over to somebody's house for dinner. We've had people decline invitations because hospitality is something that people
brings them out of their comfort zone.
Yeah, and it's terrifying for a lot of people. We live in a time where there's lots of people on medication for anxiety or whatever, and that's become more normal than actually just going over to a stranger's house for a meal. It might be easy to stop by for a beer, and there's different levels, kind of like loving younger brother in the faith, lowering the bar a little bit. So yeah, if it's just starting with sweet tea on the porch, that's wonderful and great. But that person might not ever be comfortable enough to come on over for a full-on dinner. And we've had that as well. So you're just trying to read the room.
Yeah, that's a great point, because when it's low-key like that, they know I can exit when I need to. I'm not expected to wait until dessert is over. I have the salad course, then the dinner course, then the dessert course, and then I can leave. If it's just coffee on the porch or whatever, sweet tea on the porch, they can just stop by, chat, say hi, and then leave if they feel like this is the time for me to, if they run out of steam, run out of comfort. Going back to earlier, you're talking about lots of neighborhood kids coming over. Maybe it's not an organized meal with their parents. How do you set parameters? And you have a snack drawer. Is it just free for all, or do your children know what is allowed, or do they know wait for mom to come and then I will pass out the popsicles? Or how do you set parameters for neighborhood children where it's not just total chaos? Because to a lot of people, if you said, oh, you show up from the store and 10 children are in your backyard, maybe have heart palpitations. So,
oh yeah, and for a variety
Tell
of
us
reasons.
about
Not
that.
all be culinary related. One of my favorite quotes is Dave Ramsey, and he says, "To be unclear is to be unkind." And he's not talking about hospitality. Maybe that was from Zig Ziglar. I can't remember which one, but I think
just clear expectations. Let everyone know where they are and how to be comfortable.
Yeah,
because
and since I'm the mom here,
acting in the right parameters.
Yeah, and since this is my home, and my husband's the head of our home, and I'm his delegate, and so if I'm the one here, if he's here, he would be telling him to do different stuff, not just putting it on my shoulders, But if he's not here, actually, just 2 weeks ago, I was gone at the store, and he sent me a picture, and there's probably 15 kids over here, and they're all like on towels. They'd gotten out of the pool. They're just like all over the place, and he was just here, and he was like, "It's great, everybody's doing." And I said, "Do you want me to hurry home?" And he's like, "No, we're fine.
No, I've
just
got
make sure you
this.
bring some food."
Yeah, just be sure and bring extra popsicles.
But that goes back to be unclear is to be unkind. So when kids show up, if I'm not prepared for it, either mentally or it doesn't fit into our day, but then I'll shift and say, wait, okay, I was going to prep dinner anyways. It's okay. I was going to maybe have somebody do some of their chores or maybe help me with dinner, but I'll shift because they would really enjoy this. And maybe I know their homework's done. You're always thinking through all these different things, and it's really important to be flexible. And I know that's not a gifting of everybody, but it's something that needs to be, it's like a workout. I think especially for Christians, there's not I am this way, and so I need to stay in this box. Like, God's created all of this world for us to explore and enjoy. And for our heightened enjoyment of God, we need to enjoy all the things that He's given us and not keep ourselves in this box. And so that goes for me and my kids. So I can say, I had this schedule. I had this meal plan, and this doesn't fit. Just go to the store again. And even financially, people say, well, I don't have that kind of money. But God always multiplies our generosity. His open-handedness towards His children is so abundant that when we imitate Him in that, He brings it back twofold.
Yeah.
So, and that's been a consistent experience through both my husband and our lives, and times when we thought we had very little, or literally had very little, and generosity would just be multiplied. And so now we're at a point where we have no qualms about just being like, spend it and it'll come back in some way or another. God will work it out, but it's not our job to be miserly in this department. So anyways, to be unclear is to be unkind. So we will let the kids know up front, look them in the eyes. If it's kids that we know, if it's somebody that we don't know, I'll make sure that I look them in the eye and say, hey, here are the rules. You can't go upstairs into the kids' rooms. We don't close doors. So there's certain parameters we have that aren't food related that are just
don't
wisdom.
wander all over the house.
Yeah, you can't be
Well,
taking
it's
stuff.
teaching
You can't
kids
be using
manners as well, because they shouldn't go to anyone's home and wander all over the house. Adults don't. So that's actually kind to children to start teaching them how to behave outside of their home.
Right. Yeah. So it'll be those parameters, and then when everybody's hungry, which is in about 2 seconds.
2 minutes.
Right. I always have like
hello, what do you have to eat?
like, don't you have a home?
Right. Didn't you just come from your home?
Yeah. It
I'm
tastes
hungry
better
again.
at friends' houses.
Oh,
I was that kid growing up that
totally.
we had the healthy food, and I always went to my friend's house, and her parents still tell the story. I'm almost 40, and they talk about still me showing up. I'd open up, they had the double cupboard doors to their snack cupboard, and I would go there first. I wouldn't even say hi to people. I would walk in because they had the Gushers and they
treasure
had
trove
Cheez-Its and things that just didn't exist in our home. And my parents were very generous and fed us well, but it was just a different level.
But they
of
were
snacks.
trying not to let you have all the sugary snacks all the time.
Right. So I'd go there and I didn't care about the people. It was about the snacks.
Yeah.
And then I'd stay for the people, but it was usually after I was full.
After you had all of their fruit gushers.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, but I'll usually have popcorn on hand, which is easy and cheap. And it doesn't matter if it's all over the patio because I just blow it off and the squirrels eat it. So I don't care about that.
Yeah.
and
That's
we
a
always
great
have,
tip, popcorn.
Yeah, cheap popsicles, like the Otter Pops, but there's a bunch. I love going to Grocery Outlet, and we have those all over the Northwest. I don't know if beyond, but Grocery Outlet is great because it's like a little treasure hunt. You don't know what you're going to find that's going to be maybe clean ingredients or fun stuff that I don't care if the kids eat a bunch of it. Because it'll be all fruit juice in a popsicle, and then they're excited about it, and it's not that expensive. So I'll do popsicles and popcorn, and even today I had a bunch of kids over, and I said if they did some weeding for me for like an hour, I would pay them based off of their ability and output. And then I wasn't going to follow them around, but if I saw them playing around or whatever, I would just pay them less. Like that parable about, the field workers. They're like, okay, yes, Mrs. Ely. And so they got paid accordingly, and they did it, and then they got in the pool, and they were great, but it got to lunchtime, and they were all, I'm hungry, we've been working, I'm starving. I said, okay, well, my kids are having hard-boiled eggs and like pickled carrots. If you'd like some, I only have a couple, so you can have maybe half. I don't have enough for all of you. So you're welcome to stay for that, do some more work, but I could leave. Then you're giving them some autonomy as well. I'm not their mom or their parent, and I'm not responsible to feed them, and then they can make a choice to go home. And most of these situations I'm talking about are people where we're connected with their parents. It's not just like vagrants from around the neighborhood.
Right, where
They have
parents don't
homes.
even know where they are.
Right, yeah.
For sure.
I'm in communication with their parents, and there have been times where people we didn't know showed up and would hang out for a while, or neighbors that maybe jumped the fence. We've got probably 13 different neighbors, so there have been times where people came in that we didn't even know.
Oh dear.
And one time, one kid that we didn't know came through the back fence, and I was aware of it. I talked to him, looked him in the eye, set the rules. They weren't to come inside or anything, but they could play in the backyard, and he almost drowned one of our chicks. Like this poor
Like
chick
he
was.
expected it to swim or something.
Yeah, like he thought, oh well, it's a bird. I don't know what he was thinking. He was a little guy, but then my kids were, of course, very upset about it, and he was not remorseful at all. He was kind of he was a bit wild, and he just ran off screaming after that. Just didn't care. So it was really good for the kids to also think through. We can be open-handed, but with that means that sometimes there's going to be consequences, and you have to be willing to just kind of take some of that responsibility on your own or cover it in grace, which might be different as if it was a kid that they went to school with or they've got a good friendship and relationship with, where you might have to work through an issue and not let it go and say, hey, actually that was really selfish, or that was really unkind, and we need to get back into fellowship and say, I'm sorry, or please forgive me, versus somebody else that doesn't even have a category of that in their entire life.
And they just ran off and aren't even going to face the music,
Yeah,
so
they're
to
not
speak.
giving
They're not
CPR
going
to the
to come
chicken.
and
I mean, it's just, it's over.
they're not going to come and apologize or any of that. They're gone.
Right, yeah. And then we always have fruit. Always just buying up lots of fruit, all the mandarins, all the apples. That's also a good one. If they're really hungry, I've got apples and peanut butter. They'll fill you up, and then if they're like, "No, I was hoping for something else," then you know they're not actually hungry. They just want a snack.
They're
They
looking
want,
for the fruit
Pirate's Booty
gushers.
or the fruit gushers. Yeah, I'm like, hey, that's
Sorry, this
special
is
permission.
what I have.
That's in the locked cabinet.
Yeah, right.
For mom after 10 p.m.
Yes.
Like the dark chocolate.
Oh, yum. So you have a certain set time that they eat, or just they ask you and you tell them?
Oh, they ask all the time.
So
Yeah.
how do you regulate it? Do you just say in 30 minutes or, just like one time when they're here, okay, we'll have snacks at, the set time and then you're done? Or are they allowed to come in the kitchen constantly asking you for food?
No, they're definitely not. And that's, to be unclear is to be unkind. So I'll be on top of that usually and say, hey, don't ask me for snacks. We're going to I have this and you can have it in a little while. Go play and I will let you know when it's time. Because otherwise, oftentimes I find if I set a time, and maybe that's an age thing as they get older, but my oldest is 10 and then on down, half my kids don't tell time or
true.
aren't going to, even if they could stand and read a clock.
And time feels like forever for them. So if you
Yeah.
said in 10 minutes, they could think 2 minutes passed and it's surely 10.
Yeah. And so
Especially if they're
eventually
waiting
I might
on a
have somebody
popsicle.
say, Mom, you said that in a while you do snacks. So I just remind them, yeah, I told you that I'd let you know. And sometimes I lose track of time, and then it's a good opportunity for me to own that. You're right. I said that I would tell you it's snack time, and it's been a long time. Thank you for your patience. I'm sorry I wasn't, forthwith.
Forthcoming with the snacks.
Right. And usually, though, they're already engrossed in some game somewhere. A fort's being built or people are playing horse, and so they usually have moved on, but it's flexible.
Do you monitor the kids like from the kitchen window, or do you sit outside, or do you just kind of let it be a free-for-all with neighbor kids coming over?
No, it's not a free-for-all. Like, they need to let me know. And then usually I'll let my kids know. They have a pretty good idea. We're out and about a lot. And my husband and I are going, there's different meetings. We have different business things. We have people coming in for meetings. And there's people around our property all the time, which is actually a good safety net because we've got a really great team for the different businesses that we're running, which is helpful because we've got different eyes on the kids. And from the street front, too, it also makes it helpful because people in the neighborhood know, which is another thing we liked about being in town, is that even if we're not close with a lot of our neighbors, people see the comings and goings. And if anything ever was to be really out of the ordinary, they would question that.
And neighborhood watch would see it, sort of.
Yeah. So my kids usually know if we're going somewhere for dinner or if I have expectations for their homework, and I'll tell them that up front. Usually on the way home from school, I'll say, hey, what's your homework situation? How long is that going to take you to think, okay, you're going to go here, and I'll try and split them up because that's what we have to do at our ages. You go upstairs, you go to the kitchen table, you go to the island, and you got to focus on this. And then you've got to make the lunches. These are the things you have to do. And then if somebody shows up, you may play, but if they show up and these things aren't done, then you're going to have to go off into a corner. So make sure you stay focused. And that's oftentimes it doesn't happen, but they're learning, It doesn't happen in that they then have to miss some playtime, and that's pretty good incentive.
They're really focusing on that work so they can be done when the
Yeah.
friends pop over to say hi.
And you feel for the friends too, because we've got a variety of either homeschooled or we've got different family that's maybe different schooling situations or whatever. And so it's really great when people can show up and pop by and you can drop all your plans because you know that those people are far more important than not wanting to stay up to study Latin. Like they can make that up. But the people, sometimes you only have certain opportunities. If you turn people away a certain number of times, that can kind of leave a taste in people's mouth, like maybe they don't feel welcome.
Right. If you say it's not a good time, we're busy, then eventually they'll feel like, oh, maybe it's never a good time.
Yeah, maybe
So
take it personal when
makes it
it's
not
just about your schedule. And we talk about that a lot, even just in parenting. Like the people are more important. The people are eternal, and we're going to last forever, and that's far more important than this new ball or this new bike you got for your birthday or whatever. So yes, it's yours. Yes, this is our home. Yes, this is our schedule. Yes, these are our things, but these people are far more important. We can replace all of this. We can make up the homework. We can reschedule something but these people last forever.
Well, we're kind of talking about it right now, but your best advice for showing warm hospitality to those coming into your home, would you say anything past what you've already said?
I've noticed that the art of asking questions is kind of a dying art in, I don't know if you'd say our generations, but I don't know when that starts and stops, but especially with the advent of technology being so available in people's pockets, it's such an easy fallback for people to be more comfortable scrolling on their phones. And you might see that more with like teenagers or college students now coming over, but we want people to, you want to show welcome, warm hospitality while not bossing people around. But there is that element of that is frankly just impolite to be on your phone when you're invited over, but that comes from asking questions, and we've had a lot of people over that can hardly even answer a question, and then you're left feeling like, am I pestering you? Like, are you? I don't, you just
they're just not trained or used to someone asking a question. I mean, they could be the type of person that around the dinner table, everyone's on their phone and just eating in silence. I have seen that at restaurants, and that is just one of the weirdest things to observe. An entire family, mom, dad, and kids, and they're all just staring at their phone while eating out
or maybe
at
every
a
once in a while,
restaurant.
like showing each other something that they find funny on their phone, but otherwise living relatively separate existences. So we don't want to do that. We want to be together, and we want to be learning and growing together, and that extends to people that are coming into our home. And so we try very hard to train our kids, and we ourselves are question askers, even though you've been asking me most of the questions today, but asking people good questions and thinking ahead of time, what might I have in common with this person? Even if you know very little about them, you can ask non-invasive questions
But if
pretty
they're
quickly to find some common ground.
exactly, and if they're open-ended and not a yes or no question, then the person gives you a few more little details that you can grasp. You know, like, where did you grow up? And something about that will give you another question. And so for sure, if you have that in mind, and sometimes I think the reason people look down at their phones is it's because they're uncomfortable, and it's a safety net. Like, it's like, I don't know what to say, so I'm going to pretend to be busy. So if you bring them out of that and they feel, I'm involved in a conversation, okay, now I can put my phone down. And
it can be tricky too, because it doesn't mean that we're going to be close friends with anybody. You know, part of hospitality is you're often inviting people that you know hardly at all over, and the point isn't to garner this large group of best friends. That's not the point. But it's to welcome people into the community of Christ and know that we all have and to connect, that we all have different gifts and skills. And oftentimes there's connections that are made that go into the business world or parenting or church life or travel. Like, we can glean things from each other. It doesn't mean that we're going to hang out all the time. And I think acknowledging that is okay, because sometimes some people can feel almost like asking questions is either an attack, or that if they have the wrong answer, that you're not going to like them anymore or something. That's just not the case. There's a level of maturity, emotional maturity, that needs to come along with being able to answer and be in fellowship with people, and then just leave and go do what it is God made you to do without thinking about how everybody else perceives you.
that's true. That is true. That takes a lot of letting go of one's pride and leaving and rethinking through the conversation. Did I say the right thing? Did I, you know, it's just
probably not. And yet,
and what is the right thing? Like, just be yourself and be cheerful, and don't try to put on a show, and try to answer how you think they want you to answer.
We've had dinners or conversations, things that we've had to call people later and ask forgiveness, that maybe we said something inappropriate or crossed a line or whatever. And it's, again, everything's an opportunity. Like, it's, instead of looking at everything as, oh, whoa, like the Chicken Little, the sky is falling. Like, how can God use this? Because he knows the whole story. So use my humbling situation here to help me grow or help somebody else see something in a different way. It's to see everything as an opportunity. And we talk to our kids about that too. Instead of, oh, I failed here, it'd be like, failure is actually just a stepping stone to something so much better.
Yes.
But be open-handed with receiving that. You're not going to make this something better. God is going to bring it to you. You're not manifesting yourself, your best
He
self.
is working through your hospitality. It's not all about you.
Right.
We love to say that in our family. It's a common saying. It's not all about you.
Right.
That actually works for a wide variety of topics, but just remembering that God works through you and through your gifts, and uses just your service and your cheerful attitude, and you don't even know how it will work always. You don't know how it's going to work in that person's life, or what encouragement you might offer, or what you might say that really helps that person. You don't really have that planned ahead of time, but just being available and willing to have people over.
Ask questions and be willing to try and learn something from somebody else. Like, see everybody else's somebody that you can learn something from instead of being always wanting to teach everybody else what you know.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's true. Great point. What is your must-have kitchen item?
I really like my lemon zester. Actually, I just got recently. This is a hard question for me because I'm kind of a gadget person, like I used to do for work before I was a stay-at-home matron, like designed for high-end outdoor exploring gear and stuff. And so I really like gadgety things.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm like a go-go gadget girl. If there's a bag that's got like 50 things in it, that's the bag I want.
That's the bag you want because it has a pocket for everything, including the lemon zester for the trail.
Right. No, but I got a massive juicer, like a Mexican handmade juicer, which I just used today.
That's
we use
amazing.
that thing every day. Like I used to be like, you know what, citrus is expensive. Yeah, it might be, but we use that multiple times a day. The kids are using it, and so you've got lemon in your water and your freshy juice. And
by the way,
so
lemon
great.
water, cold lemon water, hot lemon water, actually too. In the cold wintertime, I would boil water and then squeeze just fresh lemon juice into it and put it into a mug. Everybody probably thought I was drinking massive amounts of coffee at every football game and lacrosse game. No, it was hot lemon water, and I stayed warm as toast. It was so delicious, no sugar, loved it. Cold lemon water in the summertime. Hot tip, if you don't want just sugary drinks all the time, it's so refreshing and amazing. I'm sure lime would be the same. Anyway.
We do a lot of those, but otherwise just good knives. I mean, when we travel, if we end up somewhere with dull knives,
Do you travel with knives?
No, I have.
That is hilarious.
To B&Bs because
I'm
not an angry person.
You probably have to
that's
pack it, or what do they call it? Check a bag.
If we're like car
you can't
traveling.
carry on.
Actually, that's a good idea. Now we're leaving on this trip. We're leaving on a trip and we're renting a camper van. I should take my knives. Who knows? It might be one of those plastic knives. That would be awful.
No, you would need to take your own knife if you're doing a camper van.
Yeah, and my zester.
And your zester. Not the giant Mexican one.
I know, kids, you're sleeping on the floor. We've got to put the zester on the bed.
The zester's up on the hideaway bed. So, so lemon zester, a giant one? Do you think that's your favorite? Or a handheld?
Because then it can do grapefruits too. We do a lot of grapefruits.
Okay, you're gonna have to share where you found this giant lemon or citrus zester.
Yeah, no, it's made off. Oh, what is it? I'll remember it probably later.
Okay, and then what knives do you like in particular?
I really like this is after. Okay, so for our wedding, we got Zwilling International's twin. So Zwilling is the brand that everybody sees around, but there's like one that's just a single dude on it, and then there's the twin version that has two little people, hence the twins, right?
Okay.
But it's International Gourmet or something like that. Anyways, they have all these different lines. It's very confusing, but those steak knives we never ever sharpen. We've had for 14 years. I give them as wedding gifts, and these steak knives, I use them as my paring knives. I don't have a paring knife. They bother me. But these, they grip really well. They don't wobble at all, and we've never had to sharpen them like we've had to sharpen chef's knives and stuff. So we've got like a good Japanese style Sentoku knife that we really like, but we've had to sharpen all of those. That's like a love language. My husband sharpens my knives. I'm like, babe.
He spoke my love language.
Yeah, thanks.
So the steak knives, did they come with your knife set, or were they given to you separately?
They were given to us. Somebody probably just thought, oh, it's a newlywed thing. And man, those have been so great.
Okay, I'll have to look those up. Sounds amazing. All of my steak knives have disappeared, and you wonder how in the world. I think there's 2 left. I have a knife block. And they weren't real expensive ones, so it's not a massive loss. But having had that for years with young children, they're grown now. But I just wonder, it's kind of like socks in the dryer. We never lost socks in the dryer, but my children made silverware disappear.
Yeah.
When we moved, I had to go to Costco to buy silverware because we did not have a complete set to serve enough people. And we had one for our wedding and then bought a second set, because that had started happening, where we need a little bit more. Somehow, I don't know if they took it places in lunch boxes and then threw it away, or a friend picked it up off the table thinking it was their own. I have no idea, but steak knives has been the same thing. I think we may have had a set of 8, and now we have 2.
Oh man, yeah, you need
Like,
some
how
Zwilling
in
twin
the world?
International Gourmets.
I do need this in my life. I really do.
I'll send you a link to my private website with my stock of zesters and steak knives.
Okay, sounds like a plan. We need this. Listeners, you need this. Go to comeoverfordinner.com. There's a shop page where you can see all of the top recommended items. It's so much fun to browse through. Not that you have to buy it, but if you're in the market, it's a great Christmas wish list place to look. Or Mother's Day or birthday or I don't know. What else is coming up? Christmas is too far away. Summer day, just because day. Lots of, just because you're cooking new things day.
Yep.
You want to serve steak day and don't have steak knives, that sort of day. Do you have a story for us?
One of my favorite hospitality stories is when we were newlyweds, I had planned to meet one of Nathaniel, my husband's best friends, for the first time. They couldn't make it to our wedding because they were really far away and something had happened. So I was meeting him and his wife for the first time, and I planned this gourmet, what I thought was gourmet menu, and it was a zucchini, cilantro, like crushed cilantro, cold soup with cumin and like a crema on top that had zested lime and lime juice mixed into it. And it was legit. Actually, that's a good recipe. I should probably bring that back out. But anyways, I was making that, and then there was some kind of I think I was trying to do a blackened tuna, and I had never done it before. And we were in our little treehouse apartment, and I was trying to do it on a George Foreman grill. Like the ones that had the little slide so the fat would slide off?
Yes.
On a blackened tuna, which has no fat. Well, okay. So anyways, out on our deck. And it was one of those situations where we probably didn't have a plug on the exterior of the deck. So you had like an extension cord going inside into probably the bathroom, like right above the sink to plug in this drawer. It was one of those situations. They come over and we had drinks, and I started talking, and between everything was taking so long because I was trying to take care of so many gourmet details to try and be impressive. Mm-hmm. And this sweet gal, we finished dinner. We probably didn't even start eating dinner until 7:30 or so. It was really late. And this wasn't European style where we meant to start at 7:30 anyways. It was supposed to be.
It was supposed to start at 6:30.
Yeah. Right. And that was our first course. And I was trying to do courses, and then I don't even know what I had made for dessert. But it was so late. And granted, we didn't have little kids. We were young, so it's not like it was a hardship. But I had tried, in my heart of hearts, I was trying to be, yes, I guess maybe a little bit impressive, but also I just wanted to bless them with something. I knew they were foodies and that they'd traveled and they had similar interests. And so I just thought, hey, this will be fun for them too. Mm-hmm. Let's make it memorable. And it took so long. And at the end, she gives me a hug and she said, "Thank you so much. You just made me feel so much better about myself." And I didn't quite know how to take it at first. And she said it in a way where she didn't even really realize how it came across. But you just made me feel so much better about myself, because I oftentimes have this plan and I don't get food ready on time either. And it's oftentimes cold too. And it was almost like, in a way, sort of a backhanded comment. And she didn't mean it rude, but I took it that way a little bit. No, I wasn't upset about it, but I just thought, you're right.
But you're like, that's how it did turn out.
Yeah, but my takeaway from that, another funny thing about that was it was a cold soup. It wasn't even supposed to be hot. It was, like, by definition, a cold soup.
It was a cold soup on purpose.
Right. But what I took away from that is that it just makes people feel so much more at home and normal when you're just real and you're yourself. Like, people want to see that. People want the bar to be, even if you're making something gourmet, to just call it what it is. This is a guinea pig recipe, and it might flop or it might be really good, but we're in it together. Mm-hmm. So let's just experience it all together. And yes, there's a time for being like, hey, I know you have little kids and this is going to take too long. I'm really sorry I botched it. We've got cheese and crackers here. Mm-hmm. And this wasn't that kind of situation. But she was blessed by the fact that I was incapable. And I was blessed by knowing that. Like, if she wouldn't have said that and just left and thought it to herself, she didn't have to say it.
Right.
But she said it, and it's blessed me for nearly
all these
years now. And we're still good friends, and we'll go stay with them on vacation with all of our kids together. And I still remind her, thank you for telling me how inadequate I was.
I know you
and
didn't
how it made
mean
you
it
feel
like
so
that,
at home.
but it helped me grow.
Right. Yeah.
That's a great story. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah,
it's been fabulous. We've been sitting outside on her back patio with the water feature in the background. It's so relaxing. It's so beautiful, and it's so hospitable. They have really put a lot of thought into how to create a welcoming spot for the people they invite over. They actually do practice everything she's been preaching. I have felt very welcome today. So thank you again. And yes, I meant to say giant lemon juicer, not giant lemon zester. I don't even know what a giant zester would be. Until next time, bye for now.